A flame lives in water.
Hello everyone, welcome to What If Tomioka Giyuu and Rengoku Were Adopted Brothers movie. Before we start, please go support Elgabo9778 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken characters' gender, but of course Giyuu and Rengoku is a male. The three of them were abandoned by their parents. They had no one but each other. Two twins and a boy, unlike any of them, despite not being blood relatives, considered themselves brothers. They believed that one day they would see those who abandoned them again and decide whether or not to grant their forgiveness. The names of these three people are Tanjiro, Giyuu, and Yu. Chapter 1. After the Rengoku and Tomioka families abandoned their babies, a man passing by began to hear noises of a baby crying. Out of curiosity, he went to see what was happening and was surprised to see something. "Sir. What is a baby doing here?" he said, seeing a baby with yellow hair and red tips who was shedding tears. He couldn't understand who would abandon a baby there in the forest. He knew about the existence of demons and had katanas made of demon-killing material. He knew about hunter training since his family were hunters by tradition, but he didn't want to risk his life. He wanted to have a normal life with a wife and children, but he simply couldn't have children for two reasons. Because he comes from a family with a tradition of being demon hunters, they think he's crazy, and another reason is that he's infertile. For these reasons, he can't have children, and it seems life has given him no chance to be happy with a family. "Sir. It seems that destiny wanted me to take care of you, little one," he said, carrying the baby in his arms, while rubbing a finger on his cheek to calm him down, and received a small giggle. "Sir. Let's go home, little one," he said as he started walking towards his house, which was nearby. On the way, she was thinking about what name to give the baby and was noticing its appearance, and she had to say that it had the appearance of the Rengoku, a family of demon hunters, but a piece of paper fell that said two words. "Sir. What is this?" he said, taking the paper to see what it said, and what he saw surprised him. Paper. Tanjiro Rengoku. That surname surprised him, and he was thinking about how the Rengoku family had abandoned their own son. He didn't know what to do anymore, but he couldn't pass up this opportunity to have a child, so he took him. "Sir. Your first name will be the same, but you will never know your last name until the time comes," he said as he left, arriving home. But something he saw surprised him. Two more babies with jet black hair at his door. He saw that they were a boy and a girl who looked like twins. This surprised him, and he didn't know what to do. His job could support Tanjiro and himself, but if he took those two more babies, he would have some financial problems. "Sir. This will be a problem, I won't be able to take care of all three of them, what do I do?" he wondered, somewhat frightened. But he saw the little ones open their eyes and saw eyes as blue as a sapphire on the part of the boy and red eyes on the part of the girl. It touched him to see how they raised their little arms as a sign that they wanted him to carry them. "Sir. I can't leave you alone, I'm going to take care of you like my own children, you'll be brothers," he said as he picked up the children and took them inside the house to lay them down on a futon, seeing that they had a smile on their faces, but he again found a note with the names and surnames of the little ones. Nota. Giyuu Tomioka Giyuu Tomioka, gemelos. He knew nothing about the Tomioka family, he didn't know if they were business people or people who worked as hunters, but he would reveal his surname to them anyway when they grew up or when he was no longer with them. "Sir. I promise to take care of you, my little ones, Tanjiro, Giyuu, and you. I promise to take care of you until you are ready. The only thing you won't be is hunters. I don't want you to suffer," he said, going to the kitchen to prepare milk for the little ones. While at the Rengoku residence, Shinjiro is seen walking around the estate and enters a room and sees his son Shinjiro Rengoku sleeping. He was his firstborn and the first to live with him and his wife. "Shinjiro. It's best to get rid of that damn baby, because of him we lost your mother," he said angrily, unaware that he might regret abandoning his son in the future. And now finally we see the Tomioka family, which consisted of Akira Tomioka and Akiro Tomioka, arriving home to deliver bad news to their first daughter, Tsutako Tomioka, about the death of Giyuu Tomioka and Yu Tomioka, their newborn twin sons. When they arrived at the house, they saw her excitedly waiting in the living room to greet them with a smile on her face, eagerly awaiting her little siblings. "Tsutako. Tusan Ka-san, welcome home, where are my little brothers?" she said excitedly, and her parents lowered their heads. "Akira. Tsutako-chan, we need to talk about your brothers," he said sadly. "Tsutako. Worse, where are my brothers?" she said doubtfully. "Akira. Tsutako, what happened is that during your mother's delivery, your siblings stopped breathing due to an illness," he said, lying about the fact that they abandoned the children because they could not support them. Upon hearing what her father said, Tsutako couldn't help herself and ran to her room to burst into tears over the death of her little brothers and her parents, who felt bad for having to lie to her. Akira Akiro. Sorry Giyuu and you, they thought, very disappointed by what they caused. After I finished thinking about that, the rest of the day went by as normally as possible. Chapter 3. 5 years had passed, and during that time Kenji had many difficulties taking care of the 3 babies. One of the problems he faced was that the Rengokus had a lot of energy, and Kaijiro was no exception. He was very energetic, so much so that in the first few years he had to fight to be able to change his diapers. Luckily for him, Giyuu and Yu were very calm and kind. They also had energy, but not as much as Kaijiro to run around like crazy. Another problem was hiding them from his family. His family always visited him, but not to spend time together, but to try to get him to consider returning to the demon hunters. This infuriated him since his family never thought about the safety of others, only about continuing the tradition of killing demons, and he didn't want his children to become demon-killing machines and have to force a smile like his brother Satoho, although that was changing thanks to those 3 little ones. And lastly, money. The job of a hunter could certainly bring him a lot of money, but the problem is that he would leave the little ones alone and could die, and he didn't want that. Besides, if he died, his family would go for his things and find the 3 of them. Those were the complications he had in taking care of his 3 children, but right now he was training his 3 children, not to be hunters, but to defend themselves against demons, since he could not trust his family to protect them, and he could not ask his brother to do the same since he was a busy person. And as for what he thought of their progress, he had to say he was impressed. He hadn't yet taught his sons any breathing techniques, as he first had to teach them how to handle the sword, along with physical exercises to help improve their strength and endurance, and the importance of calm breathing, so that when the time came, they could learn their breathing techniques. But going back to what I was saying before, I was surprised. Those 3 children had a great talent for the sword. Kaijiro made mistakes in his defense, but in attack he was very strong and fast. I couldn't say at the level of a hunter, but for a child it was a great improvement. As for Giyuu, he was impressed by how calculating he was. Giyuu was calm, and in training, despite his age, he had a serious attitude that showed he was focused. His defense was very good, as was his attack, and he always made precise cuts to the training dummies. And finally, Yu. She was a lost cause with the sword. She always seemed uncomfortable with it, gripping the hilt and saying she felt restricted in her movement. It saddened Kenji to see Yu cry because she couldn't do things properly, but he was surprised to see her create her own fighting style. It wasn't a normal style, as she gripped the wooden sword by the tip and used the hilt as the blade. He watched her move, twisting the sword, and it resembled a dance in which her defense was excellent and her attacks were long range. Without a doubt, those children were prodigies in the art of sword fighting, and Yu was an expert in spear fighting, an art that no hunter had ever used before. Without a doubt, those children could help each other and defend themselves together, and they were only 5 years old and had started training at the age of 3. But that day something happened that he never expected. The children's training had ended and he gave them a break, and the children returned to their playful ways, running around the house playing while Kenji just rested. Undoubtedly, he had less energy every day while the 3 children ran about. "Kaijiro. Giyuu Yu ni, what do we do now?" said the energetic boy, smiling. "Yu. I don't know, I don't really feel like playing today, training left me exhausted," said the girl calmly. "Yu. What if we go to Tu-chan's room? I saw a closet that he always keeps closed and it's open there," the boy said, smiling warmly. "Kaijiro. I want to go, I'm very curious," he said with his eyes shining. "Yu. I'm in," she said, jumping up and down a bit. The children went to their father's room and saw the open wardrobe. Without wasting any time, the 3 of them went to look inside and saw a box containing some rather large books that described breathing techniques, each one with a different breathing method. There were sounds of lightning, rock, wind, and flame, but there were 3 that caught the attention of the 3 children. The breathing of water, the ocean, and the infernal breathing. Each one grabbed one of those books as they caught their attention. Kaijiro took the infernal breathing, Giyuu grabbed the book of ocean breathing, and Yu grabbed the book of water breathing, and each one began to read the book. Yu reading. Water breathing, one of the basic breathing techniques to practice and the most effective in defense along with precise attacks. The following are its attack stances. First stance. Surface cut. The user generates a powerful cut forming a wave by the movement of their weapon, enhancing their attack capable of easily decapitating any target. Second stance. Water wheel. The user performs a 360-degree spin in any direction, keeping their sword steady, forming a circle of water, and delivering a powerful cut to the enemy. Third stance. Dance of the currents. The user swings their sword against their opponent in a way that mimics the movement of water currents, thus making a fluid attack in a circular motion. Fourth stance. Tide strike. The user performs several consecutive cuts while smoothly rotating, simulating a tide around the target. Fifth stance. Rain after the drought, a cut that ends the target's life without causing any pain. 6th stance. Winding whirlpool. By fiercely twisting the upper and lower parts of his body, he creates a whirlpool that cuts through anything caught in it. 7th stance. Piercing raindrops. A quick and precise stab. This stance stands out from the others because of how quickly it can be performed. 8th stance. Waterfall Lake. The swordsman performs a vertical cut causing devastating damage to the target. 9th stance. Chaotic splash minimizes landing time and surface area required upon landing, allowing the user to move without limitations. Ideal when fighting in a location without a solid foothold. 10th stance. The Dragon of Change. A continuous attack that increases its strength with each rotation, creating powerful cuts. The book on the breathing of water is finished. Kaijiro reading. The Infernal Breath, one of the most destructive breathing techniques with very powerful attacks capable of making demons feel their own sins or regret for their actions. The following are its stances. 1st stance. Blaze of 1,000 sins. The swordsman delivers a vertical slash, which is enhanced depending on the enemy's sins, capable of generating great damage while stunning the enemy by reminding them of their sins committed, while also making the enemy feel as if they are burning. 2nd stance. 1,000-degree spinning flare. A 360-degree spin that serves as a defense against the enemy by releasing powerful flames so hot that they blind the enemy. 3rd stance. Cascade of flame. The swordsman delivers 5 consecutive cuts resembling a huge waterfall of fire that gives the enemy no escape, leaving him damaged as if a waterfall had passed over him, with 5 very deep cuts very close to the neck. 4th stance. Infernal ascending cuts. The swordsman makes upward cuts, generating flames upwards like a wall that, if touched, will burn you like in hell itself. If it manages to cut, the damage will be greater since it touches the hottest tip. 5th stance. Infernal avalanche. This attack depends on how many things you cut. The more cuts you make, the greater the range of its damage, until it reaches the point of an avalanche of the flames of hell itself. Kaijiro was surprised by such destructive breathing. The attacks were mostly attack and defense, the bare minimum so he could continue fighting. He definitely wanted to learn it. Giyuu reading. Ocean breathing, similar to water breathing, only its attacks are stronger and defense is the same. The stances are fewer than water breathing, but very powerful. 1st stance. Swift tsunami. The swordsman delivers a very fast and powerful vertical cut with no escape, resembling a tsunami that strikes very quickly with a deep cut. 2nd stance. Avalanche. At high speed the user makes about 8 very quick cuts that make him look like a great ocean avalanche, in addition to being very close to the neck. 3rd stance. Ocean of 5 dragons. This is an attack that is more defensive, allowing the user a perfect type of defense. It consists of 5 cuts. With the first one, a dragon appears, with the second one, and so on, until 5 dragons appear, providing very good defense against the enemy. However, with each cut, the user must increase the power of their strength and speed. 4th stance. Great relaxing calm. In this attack, the user remains still while relaxing their muscles to quickly cut off attacks, and if the enemy engages in close combat, they feel a relaxing peace and are unaware of the attacks. 5th stance. Great tsunami defense. The user unleashes a powerful attack while standing in the water. If they are in the water, they concentrate so intensely that their cuts transform the water into a weapon of defense and attack against the enemy, leaving them severely wounded. If performed out of the water, the attack is equally powerful, but not as strong, as it requires much greater strength and precision to match the attack performed in the water. Giyuu was very surprised because he made precise and very analytical attacks. He definitely wanted to catch him. The 3 children were eager to practice, but just then their father Kenji and their uncle Satoho came in and looked at them seriously. Chapter 5. 5 years had passed again. The 3 little ones who were 5 years old were now 10 years old. During that time, the children trained like never before to master their breathing, and in the children's words, it was pure hell. They trained until they couldn't anymore. Even if they broke a bone, they trained until that bone turned to dust. First came Kaijiro's training, taught by his uncle Satoho. Satoho told him he had to become one with the flames of people's sins, so he had to put him in a very hot environment, nothing less than a circle of fire, in which Kaijiro had to be in the middle while trying to breathe, as it caused him problems. It should be noted that in the first few days he almost died because he could only breathe the smoke from the fire, but over time Kaijiro got used to it. However, he noticed something. The more concentrated Kaijiro was, the more he could sense the sin committed by the person closest to him. This brought a smile to Satoho's face, but it didn't stop there. The physical training became even more dangerous. Despite enduring the high temperatures, Kaijiro had to endure even more. First, he had to do about 100 push-ups shirtless while below him were very hot coals. The lower he went, the more he felt the heat. Then he had to run while maintaining his high temperature so he could feel the power of the fire more fully. Finally, he learned the hell-breathing stances, which was easier since being able to maintain his high temperature allowed him to perform better. He practiced in friendly fights with Satoho, and although he didn't put up much of a fight, he managed to push Satoho to give more than 50%. Now with Giyuu and Yuu, Kenji was somewhat calmer with the training, although he didn't fall too far behind in how hard the training was. First, he had to make the twins one with the water, so he took them to a somewhat deep river, but he didn't make them meditate, rather he threw them into the water and told them to breathe underwater. In this case, both twins almost drowned, so they quickly came up for air and expelled water, but with time they managed to breathe underwater, becoming one with the water. Then he put them through physical training, making them do planks, run a lot, and do some things to increase their reflexes with tricks, but well, that was all. He taught Yuu the water-breathing stances, wanting her to learn them with a normal katana, but surprisingly, Yuu managed to make a spear and made the stances much more precise than the other one. In addition, she was very unpredictable with her reach since the distance she took to attack was inexact because the spear she had was very long on the shaft and she held it at different heights to make her fighting style better. Giyuu was the one who managed to learn the ocean breathing technique. It was more difficult for him since it required great concentration, but he did manage it. Those two twins were able to fight together very well and always ended in a draw, even though the breathing techniques were very different in power. But he was proud of his sons, and each of them brought out 50% of his power, but together, they brought out 70% since they still didn't have much experience. But now in the present, Kaijuro, Giyuu and Yuu were sparring amicably with katanas and a wooden spear to see who was the most skilled, of course, without using their breathing techniques to gauge their skill level. The first to attack was Kaijuro, who went for Giyuu at great speed, but Giyuu blocked him by placing his sword between them, putting in a powerful thrust. Yuu then went for both of them, seeing his opportunity, and with one hand he was making his spear spin 360 degrees. The two children, noticing this, became alert as Yuu always made cuts either very close or from a distance. But then they saw something. Yuu stopped spinning her spear, then released it and grabbed it at the end of the shaft, preparing to thrust at them. Giyuu used his momentum to jump, but Kaijuro was sent flying a short distance while he recovered. Giyuu was about to strike, taking advantage of the momentum of the fall, and Yuu's spear stuck in the ground. But Yuu managed to stand on top of her wooden spear and slid down, as it was slightly tilted. Giyuu made his cut but missed, and Yuu grabbed her spear to pull it out. But Kaijuro appeared behind her and slashed her, sending her and her spear flying. Giyuu recovered, and the three of them looked at each other, smiling, but a noise caught their attention. Enji had arrived from his mission and they were going to receive him, but when they saw him he was badly injured, having a cut on his chest and an almost fractured leg. The three children went to help him so that he would be alright. They took him to his room and laid him down, and Yuu began to treat his wounds since she had learned medicine to help her father when he was ill. Just then, Satoho arrived and saw his brother lying unconscious and worried because of his injuries. He knew he wouldn't wake up for a while, so he would have to take care of him. Satoho. Children, until your father wakes up I will take care of you, he said seriously. Kaijuro. But Odo-san will be alright, he said worriedly. Satoho. If he's going to be fine, don't worry, she said with a small smile as she led the children out of the room. Satoho. You have to retire now, you can't go on forever, he said, worried about his brother. Chapter 7. Satoho was nervous. He quickly took the three children inside the house to Kenji's room and hid them in the closet so their parents wouldn't realize they existed. He didn't want them to become heartless killing machines. His parents were Tomoseri being his father and Habaseri being his mother. He was at the entrance of Kenji's house after hiding the three children and was looking at his parents seriously. Satoho. What can I do for you? He said while looking coldly at his parents. Tomo. Is that how you talk to your parents, Satoho? He said seriously and somewhat angrily. Haba. You're not even going to invite us into Kenji's house. She said seriously. Satoho. You know very well that I don't consider you parents because of what you do with the family, he said seriously and somewhat angrily. Tomo. We're going to pass, so give her permission, she said, already losing patience. Satoho didn't want to let them in, but she had no choice. The good thing was that her parents wouldn't find out about the three little ones. She just hoped that Kaijuro, who was the noisiest, wouldn't speak out loud. After the parents entered, they sat down, and in front of them was Satoho, who was serious but internally nervous about the little ones coming out. Haba. Now, let's get down to business. We need you and Kenji to get married already, she said seriously, looking at Satoho, whose eyes widened. Tomo. Well, there are still children in the family training to be hunters, we need more to continue the tradition, he said, looking confidently at Satoho. Satoho. You yourselves know that I don't want children so as not to turn them into emotionless machines, he said angrily, his eyes dark. Haba. And we already told you that they will have to do it even if they don't want to, the tradition will continue, she said while smiling confidently. Satoho. Well, it's too late, since I don't have a wife, besides, I'll soon be old and sterile, and won't be able to give birth to children, and Kenji is unconscious, plus remember that they consider us crazy for hunting demons, he said, making his parents angry. Haba. You must leave offspring now, damn it, she said, already angry. Tomo. We'll come back another day, I'm fed up, you'd better accept the other day, he said as he stood up, but they heard something. Kaijiro. Yumai, said the yellow-haired boy with red. Which caused Kaijiro to shout Yumai, well, minutes before. The children were hiding in the closet because their father Kenji and their uncle Satoho told them about their grandparents, knowing that they would use them like machines. Yu. I'm scared, she said, somewhat frightened as she listened to her uncle arguing with her grandparents. Yu. Don't worry, Yu, everything will be alright, he said, hugging his sister. Kaijiro. If everything is going to be alright, Uncle Satoho will fix everything, he said, smiling while holding back from almost shouting. The three children were calm, but Kaijiro saw in one of Kenji's garments a type of cookie that he liked very much. Yu and Giyuu noticed this and wanted to prevent him from eating it so that he wouldn't make noise, but it was too late, he had already eaten it. Kaijiro. Yume, he said as the two children covered his mouth, and so we arrive at the present. Right now, Kenji and Satoho's parents, upon hearing that voice, thought someone else was in Kenji's room. They heard something low and thought it was a smiling child, thinking they had another member for the hunters. The two entered Kenji's room and saw him still unconscious. There was nowhere else to go besides the closet, so they opened it. There was nothing, just Kenji's clothes and some hunter outfits. They were searching, but found nothing, just clothes. Satoho. Get out of here, you just came in for no reason, he said seriously. Haba. We swear we heard a child, she said somewhat desperately. Satoho. Look, I'm younger than you and I didn't hear anything, so get out, said Fo Shout, and the parents left. When Satoho left, he went to the closet and looked for the children and saw that each one was inside a suit as best he could, making it look like just a pile of clothes. Satoho. Phew, thank goodness they didn't find them, he said, breathing normally again. Giyuu. Excuse me, Uncle Satoho, but Kaijiro made noise while eating a cookie that was in Odo-sen's clothes, he said, pointing at Kaijiro. Giyuu. I confirm, she said with a pout. Kaijiro. It's not my fault, I get excited about food, he said with a pout. Satoho. Okay, everything's fine, now you need to rest, he said, sounding a little tired. Both children were going to complain, but at that moment. Kenji. What happened, where am I? He said confused, looking around him. Silence was the only thing in that room. Satoho was surprised and was about to speak, but as if they were lightning bolts, the three children went to hug Kenji while they shed tears and screamed. Yu Kaijiro. Otusan, they said very happily, hugging Kenji. Kenji. Ah, my children, calm down now, one can't sleep peacefully, he said laughing while hugging the three children. Satoho. Idiot, you worried me, I thought you weren't going to wake up, he said smiling. Kenji. Okay, calm down, but now we need to eat because I'm very hungry, he said, very hungry after not eating. They spent the day laughing and happy because Kenji had woken up. Chapter 9. Satoho was badly injured. This was a disadvantage of being a demon slayer. Demons could regenerate, while humans couldn't. They had to rest to heal. But Satoho had the advantage for the moment, since the demon Mitsuki was in pain from his first form. The good thing was that if he inflicted more cuts with the first form, he could make him feel even more pain. Satoho. I have to kill him quickly, he said very tiredly looking at Mitsuki, who was holding his head remembering his sins. Mitsuki. Damned hunter, take this pain away from me, he said, wanting to attack him with his sword. Mitsuki. Blood demon art, deadly slash, he said as he went for Satoho at high speed to cut and kill him with 20-degree cuts. Satoho. Infernal breathing, fourth form. Infernal ascending cuts, he said, managing to cut one of Mitsuki's arms, who felt great pain as the flames that cut him caused him so much pain that he had trouble concentrating. Satoho. Die, infernal breath, first form. Flame of 1,000 sins, he said to go straight for Mitsuki's neck, but the demon dodged it, but his shoulder was cut instead. Mitsuki. Why does it hurt? He said angrily, that position was a big problem. Satoho. I told you you'll die, he said angrily, before going after him again. Mitsuki. Damned hunter, you're going to die, blood demon art, venomous lashes, he said as he went for Satoho and began to make several cuts at high speed. Satoho. Infernal breath, second form. 1,000-degree spinning flame, he said as he began to spin his sword 360 degrees to defend himself from the attack, and the flames that were released were so powerful that they blinded Mitsuki. Satoho. Infernal breath, Kita postura. Infernal avalanche, he said to begin dribbling at Mitsuki, who was still blinded. The more cuts Toho made, the further away he got, and the range he managed to increase. Mitsuki already had his sight and saw the last cut of Satoji, while behind him was a huge avalanche of flames that were going to harm him. He swore he felt as if he was burning more and more. Mitsuki. Blood demon art, destructive slash, he said, before delivering a massive slash that would destroy everything. The two attacks collided as dawn approached. Dust was all there was, nothing could be seen, just two silhouettes, and it was unclear who had won until it became clear Mitsuki had survived, but his neck was cut, almost dying, while Satoho had a very deep cut from his shoulder to his stomach, but even so, he was trying to cut Mitsuki's neck. Mitsuki. Damned hunter, die, there's no point in fighting anymore, he said angrily as his sword didn't come out of Satoho. Suddenly, Satoho was straining to cut his own throat. Veins were visible in his hands. The sun was rising, and Mitsuki was trying to escape, but Satoho wouldn't allow it. With no other option, Mitsuki plunged his sword deeper, killing him instantly. Satoho fell dead to the ground as his crow flew towards Kenji's house to retrieve the body, which had been left there since it was daytime. While at home, Kenji had already made a decision. He was going to tell the children who they really were, what their real surnames were, since he knew that one day he would die at the hands of a demon, so he called them to come into the house after their training. The three of them were already inside the house, sitting around a table, and Kenji was looking at them seriously, and all three were somewhat nervous. What's wrong, Odo-san? He said to break the silence about what was happening. Kenji. Sigh, children, tell me, would you hate me if I hid something from you? He said seriously, surprising the children. Kaijiro. Of course not, Odo-san, you and Uncle Satoho have taken care of us all this time, it's something we'll always be grateful for, Kaijiro said, smiling. It's true, we love you very much, you are our father, she said, smiling warmly, only that smile caused Kaijiro's cheeks to turn pink without him noticing. What's all this about, Odo-san? He said calmly. Kenji. You see, I am not your blood father, he said, noticing the children's surprise. Kaijiro. What do you mean you're not our father? He said with some fear. Kenji. Let me explain. When you were just babies, I found you in different places. Kaijiro, I found you in an abandoned forest. You were crying. That day, I decided to adopt you and take care of you, but when I got home, I found Giyuu and you there. I didn't know what to do with you. I was going to have problems if I took care of all three of you, but I decided to take care of you because I didn't want you to be alone in this world. Your real surnames are Koyuki Rengoku, Giyuu Tomioka, and Yu Tomioka, he said, looking at the children who were shedding some tears. Giyuu. I still see you as my father, even though we are not related by blood, a father is the one who takes care of you and doesn't just procreate, he said smiling. The other two children were also in the same state, and Kenji smiled. He hadn't taken anything wrong with adopting them, but then a crow arrived. Raven. Caw-caw, the infernal pillar Satoho has died in battle against a demon with the power of a higher moon. Caw-caw. Silence was all there was. The wind could be heard. Kenji's eyes were wide open, as were the children's. They didn't know what to do. Kenji was affected, but he didn't cry, as this was normal since many of his relatives had died, and he knew Satoho wouldn't have wanted to see him cry. But the children were different. They were shedding tears in torrents, their gaze fixed on the ground, not knowing what to say. Their beloved Uncle Satoho had died. They watched as the crow dipped its feet in ink and drew the appearance of the demon that killed Satoho on a piece of paper. The children, upon seeing it, only had a look of hatred, pure hatred that they had never expressed to anyone. Koyuki Giyuu. Damn demon, you killed one of the ones we loved the most, I swear in the name of Uncle Satoho that I will kill you myself, each one thought while everything remained silent. Koyuki. Father, what's the demon slayer exam like? He said, looking at Kenji. Kenji was surprised. He didn't want them to be hunters, but he understood the children's desire for revenge and proceeded to explain to them more or less what the exam was like. Chapter 11. Yu and Koyuki headed towards the place where they heard the scream. On the way, they noticed a lot of blood and ran quickly until they heard battle cries again. Water breathing, 8 stance. Waterfall Lake, said the boy with the scar they saw at the beginning. Yu was somewhat surprised to see someone else using water breathing, but she wouldn't dwell on it now. They had arrived and saw the two girls with butterfly brooches next to the cold-eyed girl. They were somewhat injured, while the boy and his companion fought to survive against the enormous demon. They had never seen anything like it. It had too many hands, its skin was green, its appearance was horrible, but they noticed several hands emerging from the ground that were going to kill them both. Yu, take care of it, you have more reach, Giyuu said seriously to his sister. Yu don't have to tell me twice, he said, grabbing his spear and taking a breath. They know that water breathing already has its respective stances, only with the katana, but Yu, having a spear, created an improvement in some stances as phases, and here is one of his phases. Yu. Water breathing, third stance, second phase. Dance of the whirlpools and the currents, he said, turning his spear in circles with his hand, balancing it so that it resembled whirlpools in the water current, managing to cut all the hands. Those who were injured and fighting were surprised by Yu's appearance, and 3 people wondered what that stance was. They heard it was from the water, but they heard something about a phase, and that surprised them, and they were even more surprised to see Yu's weapon. Demon. You damned brat, how dare you cut off my arms, you will die, he said, stretching out his arms too many times towards Yu, who was completely calm. Yu. Now Giyuu Kaijiro, she said seriously, and those present watched in surprise as 2 boys walked straight towards the demon. Kaijiro. Hell breathing, second form. 1000-degree spinning wheel, he said, to stand in front of Yu and deliver a 360-degree spinning slash that cut the demon's hands, who surprisingly let out a scream. Demon. Ah, you damn brat, that hurt. He said angrily but forgot about Giyuu. Giyuu. Ocean breathing, first form. Swift tsunami, he said, to go for the demon's duel at great speed, giving a vertical cut that did not break his cell, but hands that would defend his neck. Demon. You bastards, although, if I eat you all I'll have a very good feast, let's play, he said, laughing maniacally. Giyuu. Kaijiro, make him repent, he said seriously, and the others didn't understand anything until they saw Kaijiro. Kaijiro. Say no more, infernal breathing, first form. Flame of 1,000 sins, he said, to try to cut his neck, but it was useless, according to those who were watching, since the demon covered himself by cutting something, although they saw with surprise how Kaijiro, Giyuu and Yu smiled. Demon. Hahaha, you think so? He didn't finish because he suddenly felt a great pain and started screaming. Demon. Ai, why does it hurt so much? He said angrily while trying to stay calm, and the others looked on in shock. Giyuu. It's a breathing ability of Kaijiro's. His first form makes you feel all your sins, both from your human life and as a demon, he said seriously, looking at him coldly. Everyone was shocked by it. They never thought such a thing existed. It was the first time they had heard of the infernal breathing, and there was another one called the ocean's breathing. Kaijiro. Good Yu, finish it, he said smiling, looking at Yu, who said the following. Yu. Of course, water breathing, 10th form. The dragon of change, he said while spinning his spear in circles with his hands. They were going to tell him that wasn't how it was done, but they saw a water dragon appear and grow larger and larger at great speed, since the circles counted as cuts that increased its power until it stopped and easily cut off the demon's head. Those who witnessed the attacks of each one were surprised by how easily they faced him, given how difficult it was for them, and they didn't know what to say until Giyuu spoke. Giyuu. They're fine, he said calmly, offering a small smile to the 5 who were injured. Who are you? Said one of the girls with the butterfly brooch, more precisely the one who appeared to be the younger sister. Giyuu gave his brothers a light tap on the head. They had a bump on their head and a poker face. Giyuu. Remember what Odo-san said about being respectful, she said with a pout to her brothers. Giyuu. Hey, calm down Yu, let me introduce myself, my name is Giyuu. He didn't finish speaking because Kaijiro gave him a light tap on the shoulder. Kaijiro. Use your real surname, he said sadly, although they could use Kenji's surname, they knew the Kenji would not like them using his surname because of the bad things his family caused. Giyuu. Sigh, okay, my name is Tomioka Giyuu, he said seriously, and the cold girl there looked at Giyuu with wide eyes. Giyuu. My name is Tomioka Giyuu, I am his twin sister, she said somewhat seriously, and again the cold girl was surprised, but the boy and the girl, who seemed to be a child, were equally shocked. Kaijiro. My name is Kaijiro Rengoku, he said, somewhat disgusted by his surname. Giyuu. It's your turn to introduce yourself, if it's not too much trouble, he said, smiling. My name is Kocho Kani, said the older girl who looked like a butterfly in her haori. Kocho Shinobu, she said, somewhat unsure of introducing herself. My name is Sabito Urakadaki, he said, looking at them attentively. I'm Mikomo, she said normally, looking at them just as attentively. The only one missing was the cold girl, who was still surprised. I am Tomioka Tsutako, she said, looking at the twins who were surprised, then changing to a serious and angry expression. Giyuu. Kaijiro, we're leaving, they said coldly, and Kaijiro understood why they were like that, so they left, surprising those present. Hanny. Wait a minute, they have the same last name, they're family in any case, because Tsutako-san saw her like that, she said kindly. Tsutako lowered her head as the image of her parents lying to her about her little brothers having died repeated itself. She harbored a great hatred for them for abandoning her little brothers, but it seemed that fate reunited them. Chapter 13. When the test was over, Giyuu, Yu, and Kayakuro had to part ways with Tsutako and Sabito, since they were going in different directions. This didn't sit well with Tsutako, as she wanted to spend more time with her little siblings, but she knew there was nothing she could do. Perhaps they could meet again on missions, but for now, she would have to wait. When Giyuu and Yu separated, they were thoughtful, somewhat uncomfortable about finding their older sister. Although they were happy to find her, they needed to know more about her, but they listened to Kaijuro. Kaijuro? And how do they take the fact that they found their sister? He said, smiling. Yu. It's good to know that she liked us, but we don't know anything about her, so first we should get to know her, she said thoughtfully. Giyuu. It's the same case as you, but I noticed something, I saw you looking at her a lot, tell me, do you like her what? He said somewhat mockingly. Upon hearing this, Kaijuro blushed deeply and didn't know how to respond, while Yu was angry. She had already made it clear to herself that she loved Kaijuro and, knowing that they weren't blood siblings, she could be with him, but the fact that Tsutako had made him fall in love with her hurt her. Kaijuro. I must admit she's beautiful, but since I don't know her, I should find out what she looks like to see if I like her or not, he said, smiling more calmly. Kaijuro. Besides, I like Yu, he thought with a slight pinkish tinge. Yu. Well, we need to pick up the pace if we want to get to Odo-san, she said, smiling. Meanwhile, the three brothers ran to their father's house. Tsutako, along with his friends Obito and Mikomo, were walking peacefully to the mountain where their sensei and the closest thing to a father, Urakadaki Sakanji, the former water pillar who is retired to train others, was. On the way they talked about normal things. The three of them used water breathing, since that was the main breathing technique for training, although they were curious about some things. Obito and Mikomo knew about Tsutako running away from home because her parents lied to her, saying her little siblings had died and that she was a very good friend, but they wanted to know about the breathing technique they used. The breathing of the ocean and Infernal were sounds they had never heard before, but what intrigued them most was Yu's fighting style. It wasn't normal for someone to fight with a spear, and especially the phase he showed in the water breathing in the third stance, they thought that their master never told them about that, but they thought that maybe that phase was invented. While Tsutako had different doubts than them about what her brothers liked, what they were like, their dislikes and such, she wanted to make up for lost time with them. It was more than 10 years that she hadn't been there for them, and the world was giving her that opportunity, but they didn't notice that they had arrived at the mountain at night. Tsutako. How long have we been walking? She said, confused. Obito. I don't know, but it's good that we're back, he said, smiling. Mikomo. That's right, I'm already tired and I'm very hungry, she said with a hand on her stomach which growled a little. The three of them went and saw Urakadaki, who gave them a joyful hug because their children had returned alive. Urakadaki. It's good that you're back, he said cheerfully, not in his characteristic cold tone, surprising the students. Urakadaki. Let's go home, I have food ready for you, he said normally. The four of them entered the house and started eating like crazy, especially Tsutako, Obito, and Mikomo, who were extremely hungry. Urakadaki. Eat carefully, and how did it go? He said normally. Tsutako. It was complicated, but we found people who are important to me, she said smiling. Urakadaki. What? He said, confused. Tsutako. My little brothers are still alive and we found them. She said happily, with a smile she hadn't shown in a long time. Urakadaki was happy for Tsutako, then Obito spoke with a doubt in his mind. Obito. Utakadaki-sensei, one question, are there phases in the water stances? He said confused, and Urakadaki was equally confused. Urakadaki. No Obito, they don't exist, why are you asking? He said, confused. Mikomo. It's just that a girl who is Tsutako's little sister used some kind of spear and used the third form, but said something about phase 2, she said confused. Urakadaki. What? That's impossible. Hunters use katanas to fight and spears usually have less cutting power, I think, he said, surprised. Urakadaki. And what was that second phase? He asked, intrigued. Mikomo. It was something like third form, second phase. Dance of the whirlpools in the currents, that attack was similar to the dance of the currents, only it had more range and generated whirlpools, he said, remembering what he saw. Urakadaki. Interesting, I never thought someone would create that, he said, surprised. Obito. Another question, sensei, what are the ocean and infernal breathing techniques? He said, intrigued like everyone else. Urakadaki's eyes were open, but they were hidden by his mask. Those breathing techniques were very powerful, and despite having few forms, the ones he possessed were very powerful. Urakadaki. Where did you hear that from? He said, sounding a little scared. Obito. Tsutako's little brother used it, the ocean breathing, and another boy who was with them named Kaijuro, if I remember correctly, used the infernal technique, he said, somewhat frightened by his sensei's tone. Tsutako. Urakadaki-sensei, what are those breathing techniques? I've never heard of them before, she said, wanting to know. Urakadaki. They are among the most powerful breathing techniques that currently exist. The infernal one is capable of making demons feel like they are being punished for their sins, the ocean one is both defense and attack. The attacks are like tsunamis, he said, surprising the others. Makomo. What, how are those breaths so powerful? She said in surprise as her chopsticks fell. Sabito. And why didn't sensei teach us those breathing techniques? He said, excited to know. Urakadaki. Because it belongs to a family that doesn't hesitate to have its children killed. Besides, I don't know anything about how they train them, their training is a secret. They say that a group of 10 people trained them, and only 2 came out of the training alive, he said seriously. The others swallowed hard, wondering how they had survived the supposed training for those breathing techniques. They would undoubtedly ask Giyuu, Yu, and Kaijiro. Chapter 15. The days had passed in which the katanas or ninchuritos were being formed, but in Yu's case, his spear to fight against the demons. During that time, Kenji was attentive to his parents' movements. He did not trust them and wanted to protect his children at all costs. But it was already day, a man had arrived, he had a strange mask on his face in Giyu's opinion, since he was outside the house to see the morning of the day, it seemed strange to him that this man used that mask, but he would not judge, but as he approached he noticed 2 others with different masks carrying some boxes, he did not understand and entered the house to call his father. Giyu. Father, some gentlemen are coming to the house, he said, entering the room where Kenji was with Yu and Kaijiro. Kenji. They have masks on their faces, he said normally, wondering who they were. Giyu. Yes, they have masks and carry boxes on their backs, he said, still not understanding. Kenji. I think I know who they are, Yu Yujiro and you too Giyu, let's go outside and see them, he said calmly, smiling as he stood up. Once the 4 of them were outside, they saw that the 3 men were already in front of them. They didn't know if they were smiling or anything like that since they couldn't see them. Sir. Good morning, I am Giyuu Tomioka's blacksmith, I have come to deliver your ninchurin sword, these are the blacksmiths of Yu Tomioka and Kaijiro Rengoku, said the man calmly, taking the box from his back and handing it to Giyuu. The other blacksmiths also took out the boxes, although one of them took out a longer box than the others since it contained Yu's spear. The first to take out his ninchurin sword was Giyuu, seeing that his sword had a normal white color. Sir. Wait a moment, depending on its wielder, the color of your sword will be revealed. May I see it? He said, excited to be able to see the color. Giyuu. Of course. He said, somewhat confused. He drew his sword and when he saw that it didn't change, he thought something bad was happening until it began to turn a color. The sword was dark blue and the blade white as it was a representation of the sea, dangerous inside but calm outside. Sir. Interesting, come on you two, don't be afraid, he said to Kaijiro and Yu, who took out an ninchurin and a spear. Kaijiro's sword was as red as the flames of hell, but it didn't quite reach the crimson shade, and Yu's sword, when using water breathing, had the typical color. This surprised the 3 of them, but the lords had already left. Kenji. It seems your Kaijiro has the same color as the Toho's sword, he said, smiling as he watched the boy's excitement. Giyuu. They left this box too, what's inside? He said doubtfully. Giyuu. They're the uniforms, I saw yours before, but not mine, she said excitedly, opening the box. Silence was the only thing there was since Yu's uniform had her chest uncovered, along with a short skirt that would show a lot of her. Giyuu, Kaijiro and Kenji had veins popping out. Kenji. Give it to me, Yu, he said, grabbing it and taking it outside to burn it in front of his 3 children. He only burned the top part as he planned to lengthen the skirt if Yu wanted to wear it. Kenji. Tell me Yu, do you want to wear the longer skirt and trousers from the men's suit? He said, looking at her. Yu. I prefer the skirt please, it looks more comfortable, she said somewhat embarrassed. Kenji. Okay, I'll fix it then, he said as he went into the house and started sewing like lightning, already having a long skirt that Yu liked. Kenji gave her an old male uniform that fit her perfectly. Yu. I like this one better, she said happily. Yu. Kaijiro and I are going to change, he said as he entered a room accompanied by Kaijiro. As they finished, they came out wearing only their uniforms since they didn't have a haori to wear over them. Kenji. It suits my boys well, but I think they'll be on a mission soon, he said, sounding a little scared. Giyuu. Don't worry, father, we'll come back alive from our missions to visit you when we can, he said cheerfully, and Kenji, before a crow arrived, gave them a hug. Kenji. Believe me, a Toho would be proud of you, my children, just as I am, he said as a tear fell from his eye. Then a crow arrived. Crow. Caw-caw mission for Giyuu Tomioka, to the east, caw-caw, said the crow, surprising the others. Yu. Wait, he'll go alone, she said, sounding a little scared. Crow. Caw-caw, your crows will come to give you your missions, Giyuu will be accompanied by another hunter, Tsutako Tomioka caw-caw, he said flying above Giyuu. Giyuu. I understand, I'll go he said, getting ready. He, now ready, left while the others watched him. Giyuu thought things over on the way, he didn't know how to act when he saw his older sister, he had to be kind since he wanted to be able to talk to her, but it was still strange to know about her. He was so lost in his thoughts that he didn't notice that on the path he was running, he bumped into two girls, all three of them falling on their butts. Giyuu quickly stood up to bow. Giyuu. I'm sorry for crashing, but I was in a hurry he said apologetically, extending his hand to help them. The two girls recognized him as the boy who helped them along with the other three against the hand demon. It was Kanae Kocho and Shinobu Kocho who were there. Kanae? Wait a minute, are you Tomioka-san? She asked, taking Giyuu's hand to help her up. Giyuu? Yes, you're the Kocho sisters, right? Sorry again for bumping into you, but I was in a hurry he said to help Shinobu, who was angry but accepted the help, and then they saw him leave for another place. Chapter 17. We focus on Yu and Kaijiro returning from their missions. They were calm because their mission was very easy. They were complete prodigies who weren't at the lowest rank, but close to a pillar. They gave their uncle Satoho, who was practically a very good pillar, a run for his money, but they didn't boast about it. They weren't those kinds of people. They always wanted to protect those who were weak. That was something Kenji and Satoho taught them. Always use your power to protect the weak, were words I would never forget from those I loved most. When they arrived home, they saw Kenji and Giyuu talking calmly, and on the table were some hares that surprised them. They didn't know what was going on. Were they for washing? No, since they looked clean. Or were they for voting? That idea was discarded since Satoho told them about her Haori and they saw that she was there. They knew she was very special to vote, so they asked, but not before greeting her. The Kaijiro. Hello they said cheerfully and Kenji went and gave them both a warm hug. Kenji. I'm glad you're okay he said, stepping away from them and seeing that they were smiling. Yu. Odo-san, what are those hares? The girl asked curiously. Kenji. These are gifts for you he said, walking to the table and grabbing two hares. Kenji. Yu, this one's yours he said, handing her the white Haori that had blue touches imitating the water tides. Yu. Thank you very much, Odo-san she said, smiling broadly as she put on the Haori, which suited her very well and made Kaijiro blush. Kenji. You look very good, my girl he said, smiling and stroking her head. Yu. This one was given to me he said smiling, showing off his Haori. Note. Imagine she has long hair and a ponytail. Kaijiro. You look good, Giyuu he said, smiling broadly. Kenji. That's the Haori I had long ago in my younger days as a hunter, that's why I'm giving it to you Giyuu, the one I gave you Yu belongs to my sister, who died in her training he said sadly, remembering his family members whom he did manage to love. Kaijiro. And what Haori will I wear, Odo-san? He said doubtfully. Kenji. You will wear this Kaijiro, this belonged to your uncle Satoho, wear it with pride and make Satoho proud of you he said smiling, showing him the Haori. Kaijiro was excited about that and put it on, feeling comfortable. Yu blushed and looked away, and Giyuu and Kenji gave their approval. After that it was already late and the three of them had to go to sleep. They didn't have any missions at that moment, but we won't focus on them, but on the butterfly sisters, who were hesitating, or rather thinking about something that angered them to a point. It turns out that the scene of Giyuu hugging Tsutako made them feel strange. Shinobu was angry that Giyuu bumped into her. She wouldn't deny that he helped her, but she wanted to punch him for it. But when she saw him hug Tsutako, she felt strange. Her heart tightened a little and she felt a slight pain. Something similar happened to Kanae. Although she thanked Giyuu for helping her, she felt bad seeing him hug Tsutako. She still didn't understand why they felt that way. They didn't think much of it and decided to go to sleep. Now with Tsutako, she was thoughtful. She had already had a mission with her little brother, but she wanted to meet her little sister Yu. She knew that since they were twins they might have the same tastes, but she wanted to spend time with her to strengthen their bond, since Giyuu didn't trust her much at first. But even though she found them, she didn't forgive her parents. Even though she heard why they abandoned her, she couldn't shake the idea that everything could have been different. She still remembered how it was. Flashback. A slightly younger Tsutako was awake, unable to sleep as she still grieved the death of her little siblings, until she heard her parents talking. Out of curiosity, she went and listened through her door. Akiro. I still think we shouldn't have done that he said sadly, still remembering how he left his two children. Akira. We couldn't do anything, we didn't have the means to take care of them too. We managed to help Tsutako with what we earned, but with them we would have problems he said sadly. Tsutako couldn't believe it. The news that her little brothers had died devastated her. But hearing that her parents had lied to her and abandoned her little brothers made her explode with anger and she stormed out. Tsutako. How could you abandon two babies and on top of that my brothers? She said angrily, looking coldly at her parents. Akiro. "Tsutako, did you hear that?" said his father, frightened. "Tsutako. Yes, I heard you," she shouted at them, filled with hatred. "Akira. Listen, daughter, I didn't finish because Tsutako spoke. Tsutako. I'm not your daughter anymore, goodbye," she said as she ran away from the place. Her parents, surprised, couldn't catch her and lost sight of her. Vindel flashed back. That's how it all happened. Tsutako wanted to find her little brothers, was found by Urakadaki and trained by him, and now, thank God, she had the opportunity to reconcile with her little brothers and be the sister who would always be there for them. She just had to wait for another mission in which, if she was lucky, she could be with her little sister Yu. Chapter 19. Yu walked towards her mission, unsure about going. She knew Tsutako from what Giyuu had told her, but she didn't trust her. Although she had needed an older sister, she wasn't going to admit it in front of her. She wanted to see if she could be trusted first. When he arrived, he saw his sister Tsutako waiting calmly at a stall, having some tea. "Yu." "Hello," she said normally. It was uncomfortable for her to talk to Tsutako, since she never knew her well. "Tsutako." "Oh, hello Yu," she said with a warm smile on her face, looking at the younger Tomioka, although her attention was on Yu's spear. Yu noticed that and knew it was normal for them to find his spear strange. It was practically a new weapon for fighting demons. "Yu. I see you're curious about my spear," he said, and Tsutako felt a little embarrassed from staring so much at Yu's weapon. "Tsutako. I'm sorry, but it's not normal to see a weapon like this, sorry if I made you uncomfortable," she said, taking a sip from her teacup. "Yu. No problem, they've already asked me about my spear on missions," he said normally, sitting down in front of Tsutako, as there were still things to do. "Tsutako. Do you want to order something? I'll pay for it," she said, smiling sweetly. "Yu. I'll just order some tea and I'll pay for it myself," she said somewhat awkwardly, as she didn't know what to say. "Tsutako. Okay," she said somewhat sadly. She wanted to try to talk to Yu, but her nerves wouldn't let her speak. It was simply strange. With Giyuu, she was able to get somewhat close, but with Yu it was different. She didn't know what to do. When they finished, they set off on their mission to the village a few minutes away. They noticed that the people were normal, although some were scared, so they decided to go and ask. It turns out that the demon and his blood technique caused people's fears to appear in illusions at night, and this led them to where he was and be devoured. This angered both girls. They didn't understand why he loved to play with people. They decided to wait until night to kill the demon. There was no point in looking for him during the day. Later that night, both girls had been following a person who was heading towards the nearby forest. The young man walked with a blank stare, not understanding what was happening, only seeing his fears telling him to go further and further, until a demon appeared. It was one with a human appearance, only it had red horns along with claws and fangs. "Demon. How easy it is to manipulate humans," he said, smiling arrogantly as he prepared to leap at the young man and devour him. "You damn scum." He shouted with his spear extended, delivering a great thrust to the demon's chest, causing him to fall on his back and squirt blood from his mouth. "Demon. Damned," he said as a sphere appeared in his hands. "Tsutako. I won't allow it, water breathing, first form. Surface lash," she said, making a simple cut that severed the demon's head, but the sphere hit Yu, who was affected. "Demon. Blood technique, living nightmare," he said so that the sphere would hit Yu, who felt nothing at first, since he managed to dodge the sphere, it only grazed him, hitting him a little on the cheek. After that, they both left, although Yu seemed uncomfortable. This did not go unnoticed by Tsutako, who was worried about her little sister. They arrived at the inn and asked for a room to share, as there was only one left. When they entered, they lay down on their futons. In the middle of the night, Yu began to sob. Tears came out of her eyes. Her fears appeared and did not stop, the fears of being useless, of being judged for not being able to use a katana, of being abandoned by her brothers, and Tsutako listened to her. She got up from her futon and entered Yu's, giving him a hug that surprised Yu. "Yu. What are you doing? Go away," she said, trying to break free from Tsutako's hug. "Tsutako. Okay, you can let go of the pain," she said, hugging her. "Yu. I have nothing to say, go away," he said, trying to make Tsutako leave. "Tsutako. I know I don't have the right to call myself your sister, but I want to make up for lost time. I want to be a part of your life and help you with your fears. I want to be a sister who will always be there for you," she said, hugging her a little too tightly. "Tsutako. You can count on me to let out your tears. If you're scared and they're not there, I'll be there so you have a shoulder to cry on," she said, noticing how Yu remained silent. Yu started crying on Tsutako's shoulder. Her pain and fears were always with her, and Kenji, Kaijuro, and Giyuu were always there for her, but not this time. Instead, her sister wanted to enter her life. "Yu. Thank you, Ni-san," she said, falling asleep while hugging Tsutako, who shed a tear of happiness and also ended up falling asleep. She had made progress between herself and Yu. All that remained was to recover the time they had lost. But what happened to Giyuu? Well, the next chapter will show what happened to him between the Kocho sisters. Chapter 21. Giyuu and Shinobu were on their way to Kanae so they could go and rest, but they saw something that impressed them. Kanae had been standing alone, but she had a wound on her leg and was leaning against trees while letting out some groans of pain. Shinobu. Ni-san, I shouted to go to her and lay her on the ground and start treating the wound. Kanae. Ara Shinobu, calm down, remember that I like to see you smile, she said calmly, but letting out a groan of pain because of how Shinobu was treating her wound since it was rather deep. Giyuu. Kocho-san, it makes sense for you to worry, you're his sister and from what I can see, his only family, he said calmly, looking at the two Kochos. Kanae. Hello Tomioka-san, and I think your argument is true, Shinobu and I are our last family, she said sadly about losing her parents. Giyuu. Well, I see your sister finished healing your wound, he said, watching as Shinobu bandaged Kanae's leg. Shinobu. Are you alright, Ni-san? But you can't walk because your wound will reopen, she said, trying to think of a way to carry her, since her lack of physical strength wouldn't help in taking Kanae to an estate to rest. Kanae. I think we'll have to spend the night here, she said, sounding a little sad and guilty that they would have to spend the night outside. Giyuu. I can carry you to a farm on my back, he said normally. Although it may not seem like it, Giyuu is still innocent, very innocent, unaware of any hints. Kenji never wanted them to be corrupted by lust, which is why he protected them so much. Of course, he explained sexuality to them in some detail, so they would sometimes know what they were talking about, and luckily they weren't traumatized, but Giyuu was still too innocent, Yu was 75% innocent, and Kaijiro understood well and was half innocent. But going back, Kanae had blushed at what Giyuu said. She had read novels where couples sometimes did that and misunderstood what Giyuu meant by replying. Kanae. Ara Tomioka-san, we barely know each other, we have to take things slowly, she said somewhat mockingly, and Shinobu glared at Giyuu. Giyuu. What? I'm just going to take you to the estate, is there anything wrong with that, since you're known for taking things slowly? He said, tilting his head slightly in a sign of confusion. There was nothing wrong with carrying Kanae on his back to get to the estate. Shinobu. Do you even know what it would mean if you did that? She said somewhat angrily. She was very protective of Kanae. Giyuu. No, but what's wrong with that? I used to carry my sister Yu on my back, he said normally, looking at them without understanding what they meant, and then the sisters understood that Giyuu was innocent and Kanae blushed with embarrassment. Kanae. It's okay, will you help me please? She asked, blushing from misinterpreting her mission partner's actions. Giyuu, still confused, with Shinobu's help, placed Kanae on his back. Giyuu's grip was firm, and besides, according to him, Kanae didn't weigh that much. So, together with Shinobu, they began to walk at a speed that would easily take them to the estate in 30 minutes. Shinobu. Hey, can I ask you something? She said, looking at Giyuu. Giyuu. What's wrong, Kocho-san? He said normally, looking at the girl walking beside him, while Kanae listened. Shinobu. How did you manage to take down those demons so easily? You practically killed them in a second, she said, still wanting to know, and Kanae was interested. Giyuu. Well, it's a new stance I created so I can defend myself quickly and attack at the same time. It took me a lot of effort because it requires a lot of concentration, he said, remembering how many times he almost ran out of breath because of that stance. Shinobu. What? She said, confused. Giyuu. By creating 360-degree circular cuts, I can use them as a shield, or when the enemy is distracted, I use them as an attack. I'm fast because my uncle Satoho trained me a lot in that, he said, remembering his uncle. Giyuu. I should visit my uncle, it's been a while since I visited his grave, he thought sadly. Shinobu. You're so lucky, she said, sounding a little angry. Kanae. Please let it not be what I think, Kanae thought worriedly. Giyuu. What do you mean? He said, confused. Shinobu. You have a family, you didn't lose anyone, you still have a family, you don't know what it's like to suffer when you lose everything, she said angrily, she was envious of those who still had family. Giyuu. Said nothing, his eyes were covered by his long hair, he was angry, how dare she talk about it. Kanae. Shinobu, please don't say that, she said, somewhat agitated by her younger sister's attitude. Shinobu. But it's the truth, he doesn't know, even in the final selection he found a relative, she said angrily. Giyuu. Don't talk about things you don't know, Kocho, he said coldly, still walking. Shinobu. Of course I'll talk, if you have a family, she said angrily. Kanae. Shinobu, she shouted to her sister, who calmed down. Giyuu. As I said, don't talk about things you don't know. For your information, my sister Yu and I were abandoned by our parents when we were just newborn babies. We were lucky that our father, Kenji, adopted us, along with another brother who was also abandoned. I also lost my uncle Satoho, who died at the hands of a demon. He was one of the few people I had in this world. And maybe you're right that I found a relative, but she wasn't with us. We're giving her the chance to have a sibling relationship, but she doesn't know what we suffered from the lack of affection, since we had to train at such a young age, he said coldly, still walking and arriving at the estate. The sisters didn't know what to say. Giyuu suffered too, and he was like that because of Shinobu, but what followed made them feel bad. Giyuu had asked for the room and left them there, but said. Giyuu. You all stay here, I'm leaving, he said, closing the door somewhat forcefully and starting to walk away in search of another inn, and if he didn't find one he would walk to Kenji's house. Chapter 23. Giyuu and Tsutako were inspecting the village at night. Both sisters were serious because the demons were strong. If one manipulated people, what could they expect if there was another? Perhaps one of them would be stronger than the other to fight. The while passed and they couldn't find anything, they simply didn't understand what was happening, so at midnight they were ready to leave, but a type of bullet was fired at them which they dodged with difficulty. Demon. Ah damn it, why didn't they die? Said the demon angrily, looking at both huntresses who felt a chill when they saw him. He looked human, but he had horns sticking out of his hat, claws on his hands next to what appeared to be pistols from that era, one eye covered, and in the other, he had a number with an X. His skin was dark, his arms had a hole in them, and he wore a kind of armor. He had long hair. Note. If you don't know, use the image of Kenny from Ad when he's in the military police against Levi. Demon. I must improve if I want to regain my position, and for that I need to kill them, he began. Demon. Blood technique, blood bullets, he said, causing his pistols to fire highly compressed bullets made of his blood, which they dodged again, and they saw that he broke some trees in the process. Giyuu. A former lower moon, this is the sixth one, she said in surprise. In her mission she had never encountered a moon, and now she saw one and didn't quite know what to do. Tsutako. Giyuu, we have to finish him off, it seems his weapons are taking a long time to recover, she said, seeing that the demon's weapons were smoking as if they were trying to recover. Demon. I won't let you, blood technique, connecting whip, he said, and from the aforementioned hole came out a kind of meat hook that went for them, which they easily dodged, but the demon wanting to have his whip, propelled himself directly towards them, which they did not expect, but Giyuu got in between and breathed. Giyuu. Water breathing, second form, second phase. Spinning water shield, she said, causing her spear to spin in front of her, generating a shield that cut the thread and also severed the demon's legs. The demon was surprised, but using her other arm, she pulled out another whip that hooked onto a tree behind him to avoid further injury. Demon. Damned, he said angrily, and with his flesh, he created a kind of knife. Demon. Die, he said as he sped towards both girls, but Tsutako didn't stay behind. Tsutako. Water breathing, sixth form. Winding whirlpool, she said, twisting her body from the bottom up and managing to cut the arm of the demon who was getting angrier and angrier. Demon. Damned, he said, no longer thinking about anything. Using his whips, he managed to get into the air and spoke his last technique. Demon. Blood technique, cannon shot, he said, bringing both pistols together and joining them to resemble a cannon that fired at both sisters. Without wasting any time, Giyuu had to use a technique she never fully perfected, but it was her last hope. She grabbed her spear by the tip of its handle, put it behind her, and took a deep breath. Giyuu. You're the first one I'll use this technique on, he said as he tightened his grip. Giyuu. Water breathing, Desika stance. Devourer of the sea, she said, so that when it seemed that the sea was below her and she using all her strength, she made a downward cut, the sea below her split in two, along with the cannonball that was launched, and the range was so long that it cut the demon's head. Note. If you don't know how to consider it, think of it as the same technique as Lu Bu from SNV, and it's the 11th one, it's calm. Tsutako was shocked by Giyuu's technique that managed to finish off the demon, but she saw her sister fall defeated, breathing heavily as her vision blurred. Giyuu. I killed him, she said wearily. Tsutako. Well done, Giyuu, now let me help you, I'll take you to the inn, she said as she went with Giyuu to an inn. She was impressed by her little sister's technique and was proud of how strong she was. Tsutako. You will be a great hunter, Giyuu, she said while still walking to an inn with Giyuu in her arms. Meanwhile, elsewhere we see Giyuu calmly eating daikon with salmon alongside the Kocho sisters who were somewhat uncomfortable with the atmosphere. It turns out that ever since Shinobu gave Giyuu that hug, they separated a little because of the embarrassment of what happened and were eating in silence. Giyuu felt uncomfortable. He wouldn't deny that he liked the hug, but he felt his face getting hot at that moment. Kani, for her part, didn't know why, but she was bothered by the fact that Shinobu was hugging Giyuu. She didn't know why it angered her. They were just friends, right? Shinobu was happy but embarrassed by what she had done and didn't want to talk. Tonight they finished their mission completely and could leave. Giyuu. Thank you for the food, we'll see each other on another mission, he said normally as he left the place. Kani. Goodbye Tomioka-san, she said smiling. Shinobu. Goodbye likewise. Chapter 25. Kaijiro had been very tired, he was bandaged but could walk with some pain. He was walking home right now, swearing that every step he took hurt a lot because the demoniac's techniques had hurt him a lot. Luckily, he had arrived home. All he could do was knock on the door before collapsing unconscious in front of it. Giyuu opened the door, surprised to see no one there. He lowered his head and what he saw horrified him. Kaijiro was lying there, bleeding in his unconscious sleep. Without wasting any time, Giyuu picked up Kaijiro and walked past those in the room. Kenji, Yu, and Tsutako were in the room and were very surprised to see Giyuu ignoring them. They were about to complain when they saw some blood on the floor. Kenji. What? He was alarmed and went to the room where Giyuu had gone to open it and see Giyuu, who was looking for all the medicine they had. Yu. Nai-san, what's wrong, he said upon not seeing Kaijiro until Giyuu spoke alarmed. Giyuu. Where are the bandages? Kaijiro has many wounds, he said, desperately searching for the bandages. Kenji, along with the two girls, saw Kaijiro lying on a futon they used to heal wounds and they saw him without his hunter's outfit, wearing only very red bandages and with some blood spreading on the futon. Without wasting any time, Kenji took out the bandages and together with Giyuu, began to clean the wounds with a wet cloth, staining the cloth completely red. Giyuu. You, Tsutako, come out, Odo-san, and I will take care of this, he said seriously, and the girls didn't want to come out but they did because of a serious look from Kenji. When they left the room, Yu ran to his room to close the door with some force. Tsutako went to see what was happening and what she saw caused her a great pain. Yu was crying, hugging his pillow. Yu. Why, Yukayo-kun, she said, crying because of what happened to Kaijiro, whom she loved. I didn't notice that Tsutako was behind her to give her a hug. Tsutako. Don't worry, everything is fine, I'm sure it's fine, she said, stroking his head, and Yu returned the hug. Yu. Snip snip, she made those sounds because she wanted air from crying a lot and was calming down because of the affection Tsutako gave her. Tsutako. So, Kaio-kun, huh? She said slightly mockingly, causing Yu to blush deeply. Yu. Did you hear? She asked, alarmed. Tsutako. Relax, it's okay. It's obvious you care about him. He was like a brother to you and you developed feelings for him. It's normal to fall in love, she said, remembering how she had also fallen in love, but it turned out badly because the one she loved before was only interested in Hex and nothing else. Yu. Don't tell Giyunai anything, she said, blushing slightly, hiding her head between her sister's breasts, who blushed at that and felt a little ticklish. Tsutako. Oh okay, but don't move there, you're tickling me, haha, she said, and Yu smiled mischievously. She laid Tsutako down on her bed, rubbing her face against her older sister's breasts, who let out soft giggles as she tried not to laugh. While Kenji and Giyuu finished healing Kaijiro, who was already out of danger, he was only unconscious. Giyuu went to Yuu's room to tell him that he was okay, but when he entered he saw a scene that was somewhat he didn't know whether to say comical or embarrassing. The two sisters turned around trembling, looking at Giyuu, who remained static, and said. Giyuu. I'm sorry to interrupt whatever you're doing, but I've come to let you know that Kaijiro is okay, he's no longer out of danger, he said calmly, unaware that this could be considered a very compromising scene. Giyuu closed the door thinking they were just hugging and left, while Tsutako and Yu were red with embarrassment because of it. Giyuu was very innocent and they were grateful that he didn't misinterpret things. Yu. Less bad than Giyuu is innocent, he said blushing. Tsutako. Okay, let's stop doing this, otherwise your father will see us and he'll misunderstand, she said, blushing. They both stood up and Tsutako didn't know, but when she remembered that Yu told her she loved Kaijiro, she got a little annoyed. She didn't really know. She didn't believe she loved him. Maybe it was just a protective sister's instinct. While Giyuu was talking to Kenji. Giyuu. Well, father, I have a question, what are the requirements to become a pillar? He said curiously. Kenji. Well, the requirements to become a pillar are to kill a considerable number of demons, or to kill a lower or higher moon. Many have become one simply by killing many demons and others just by killing a lower moon, but a higher moon has never been defeated, he said somewhat incorrectly. Giyuu. I see, Kaijiro and Yu will have a long way to go to become pillars, he said seriously. Kenji. Wait, what do you mean, the menu? He said, looking at Giyuu. Giyuu. To be honest, I don't consider myself strong. I can save lives, but I don't consider myself worthy of being a hunter and a pillar. I couldn't help Yu with her depression because she couldn't use a katana, whereas Kaijiro and Tsutako could. My companions, well, they don't hate me, feel like it's my fault they're like this, he said, since from a young age he felt inferior to everyone. Giyuu. That's why I want them to be pillars, they deserve it more, with them the demons can be defeated and I will only be their shield, I will sacrifice myself so that they can have victory, he said confidently, though his voice was somewhat empty. Giyuu wasn't envious of anyone, he admired everyone, but he felt useless, he always thought of himself as inferior for not being able to do much for his brothers, and that increased when Satoho died. Genji knew about Giyuu's problem, and it caused him great sadness, but he couldn't do anything. Giyuu would just have to find someone to pull him out of that darkness. Chapter 27. Giyuu was now walking to his mission with an empty expression on his face, always showing that he had almost no emotion when he had missions alone. She felt so useless from the beginning, and now, after her uncle's death, she felt even more useless. There were times when she thought about killing herself to see her uncle again, but she didn't want that to happen. He still had his two brothers and now his older sister along with his father Kenji, maybe the Kocho sisters count, but he felt a great helplessness in every mission he had, feeling of little use. Giyuu. They say people live for something, but what is that something I should live for, uncle? You always had an answer to that, but you're gone now. I wish I could see you one day, but it's not possible. We're both in different worlds now. I hope you're okay. He thought as a tear rolled down his cheek and fell to the floor. He didn't know how long he had been walking until his raven announced. Crow. Caw-caw, we've arrived, caw-caw, he said on Giyuu's shoulder, who came out of his thoughts and just looked at the village. Giyuu. I understand, thank you friend, he said calmly as he began to walk through the town. It wasn't very big, but it was a cozy place. He said that if he could, he would live there. But his duty was to protect the people from the demons, and he was going to do it. The first thing Giyuu looked for was a food stall, because at least in that respect he cared about himself. He needed food since, in his words, without food he would be even more useless than before. He looked for a simple stall, saw that there were few things, but his daikon with salmon was not there, he sighed. Sir. Excuse me, young man, but what will you be ordering? Asked an ordinary man, looking at Giyuu. Giyuu. A bowl of rice with some tea, please, sir, he said calmly, giving the man a fake smile. Sir. Okay young man, we'll have your food ready in a little while, he said as he went to the kitchen to start preparing the order Giyuu had requested. When the food arrived, he thanked me and paid in advance so as not to waste time. The food was good, I must say, the tea was average. When he finished eating he went to look for information, but nobody told him anything, it was strange, it was as if they were uninterested or something, or rather that they thought he was crazy. Giyuu didn't complain about it, because who in their right mind would ask about the constant disappearances? It would probably be someone crazy, but he didn't complain anymore, he didn't collect anything, because nobody said anything to him and they looked at him badly. His raven told him that he appeared at midnight and was thinking about what to do during that time, but he stopped thinking when he felt a great presence of murderous instinct that made him tremble. Giyuu. What kind of killer instinct is this? I've never felt anything like it. Could it be a moon? He thought, somewhat frightened, because a demon with a higher moon level killed his uncle. What could he do against a lower moon, let alone a higher one? Giyuu. Calm down Giyuu, calm down, just calm down, or you'll die, he thought seriously to compose himself and go straight to where that tremendous murderous instinct was. When he arrived he saw that it was outside the town, or well not so far outside, since it was an area where he noticed people passing by in pairs. There he saw it, a demon about to attack a couple, and it had a number in its eye that terrified him. It was the lower moon 6. Giyuu wondered what that strange demon armor was. He didn't really know what was happening until he came out of his trance upon hearing the demon. Demon. Oh, little couples here, little couples there, I never tire of devouring little couples, said the demon, looking at the couple who were scared and in shock. Demon. Good evening, esteemed couple, my name is Misaki, lower moon 6. Remember this well because it will be the last thing you hear, she said as she went to attack them, but a sword appeared in front of her claws. Giyuu reacted in time to protect the people who were there. Misaki. Oh, what a surprise, a hunter. What a surprise that you managed to stop my hunter attack, she said, smiling as she walked away from him. Giyuu. You all get out of here, he said seriously while looking very seriously at Misaki, although when he trained with his uncle and gave him battle being a pillar, he was not used to fighting with demons and even less with a moon, more specifically he had little experience. Misaki. I notice you don't want any interruptions, well let's start the fight my friend, she said as she went at great speed towards Giyuu to try to cut Giyuu in the stomach with her claws. He was about to, but Giyuu deflected the attack to the right using his sword, trying to cut off his arm, but the armor on his arm prevented him from cutting it and only deflected it. Giyuu jumped back so that no further attacks could happen. Misaki. Oh, I see you're surprised by my armor. Let me tell you something, my friend. I'm telling you, my armor is impossible to cut, so go all out if you think you can cut my head, he said strangely, and Giyuu thought. Giyuu. His armor is very resistant, even with my strength I couldn't cut a little, I must use everything I have, otherwise I will die, he thought seriously as he positioned himself to attack. Giyuu. Listen Misaki, Lower Moon 6, my name is Giyuu Tomioka, Demon Hunter. We'll soon see who wins. Your armor may be very hard, but your hard head won't be easy to cut he said, smiling broadly. This was something in Giyuu that motivated him to go beyond his limits, because seeing strong demons made him realize he was weak and he knew his level was too low to defeat the demon who killed his uncle. This moon was going to be a test of whether he had become strong enough to avenge his uncle. Misaki. Okay, let's dance until we die she said excitedly. Misaki. Let's go all out, Giyuu Tomioka, let's see who's stronger here and now he said, smiling with a maniacal grin on his face. Giyuu. With pleasure, I don't like demons, but this will be a test which I intend to overcome no matter what he said smiling. Misaki. That's the spirit, that's how an opponent should be, now blood demon art sword armor said the demon as the armor on her arms extended, covering her hands, which were two very hard swords, and she went to attack at great speed. Giyuu. Ocean breathing, third form. Ocean of 5 dragons he said as Misaki smiled at that. Misaki. Perfect, blood demon art sword of the bloody world he said, causing blood to cover the swords he had, giving them a great edge, and moving to where Giyuu was waiting for him. Giyuu made his first cut, generating a dragon that was meant to defend him from Misaki's initial strike. Misaki didn't stop. She was about to deliver another cut with her sword, this time targeting Giyuu's right arm. But he spun around, creating an even larger dragon that clashed with his sword, sliding across the floor. Misaki ducked to strike Giyuu's leg, but he lowered his sword and a torrent of water erupted from the ground, lifting Misaki's arms without severing their blades. Giyuu's sword was deflected downward and another, even larger dragon emerged, intent on slashing Misaki. She crossed her swords, blocking Giyuu's attack, but the ground cracked, sinking slightly as each cut grew more powerful and rapid. She had to admit she was enjoying the fight. She recovered, ready to slide her swords forward to strike Giyuu, but he noticed this and executed a full spin, generating a 5th dragon that defended him. And I send Misaki flying a little way away. Misaki. Hunter, I haven't had this much fun in a long time. Let's see what else you have. Blood demon art crossbow of the 10 arrows of punishment he crouched down and blood came out of his back, revealing a crossbow with 10 arrows that were launched at high speed at Giyuu, who jumped up to say. Giyuu. Ocean breathing, 2nd form. Avalanche he said, going for Misaki who smiled and said. Misaki. Blood demon art armor dome he said, causing his armor to cover him in a dome-like form that prevented the 8 powerful cuts Giyuu delivered. He then put his armor back on and his swords were ready to attack, but Giyuu kicked him in the face to propel himself away from her. Misaki. Hunter, you impress me. Many have tried to kill me, but no one has succeeded. But I must say, we're going all out he said, smiling, already ready to attack. Giyuu. You're going to die he said seriously as he went after the demon. Giyuu. Ocean breathing, 1st form. Swift tsunami he said, going towards the demon at high speed, a type of tsunami appearing behind him and delivering a quick cut that Misaki managed to stop. After this, she went to find Giyuu, who was waiting for her again, and Misaki began to make cuts faster than Giyuu could barely block with his sword, receiving shallow but painful cuts because of how sharp those swords were, so he decided to defend himself. Giyuu. Ocean breathing, 4th form. Great relaxing calm he said, remaining still, and Misaki trusted him, thinking he was doing nothing, but it turned out that Giyuu relaxed his muscles, doing something at great speed, and Misaki felt a great calm, not feeling the cuts in the parts where he didn't have armor. Misaki walked away, somewhat angry, and then went after him again, still angry. Giyuu. Ocean breathing, 6th form. Dragon shift he set to try to cut Misaki who covered himself in the dome of his armor and Giyuu could do nothing since when he finished his attack, Misaki gave him a cut that wounded his chest, drawing blood. Giyuu. Ah gimme de dollar. Misaki. Hunter, you gave me a fight, but you must die unless you have another memory with which to kill me she said, smiling. Giyuu. This will be my last attack and I intend to give it my all he said seriously as he stood up. Misaki. That's the spirit. Let's go all out, show me your power. She said, smiling broadly. Giyuu. Ocean breathing, 7th form. Temple of Poseidon he said, gripping his sword tightly and going for Misaki. This attack consisted of a powerful thrust as if the realm of Poseidon itself were pushing. Misaki put on her dome and thought she was going to survive, but she was greatly surprised to see how the thrust, upon colliding with her dome, generated a very large expansion, seeing as if a huge earthquake destroyed her small dome, leaving her without her armor, which would take a long time to regenerate. She only had her swords left. Giyuu. Ocean breathing, 8th form. Poseidon's fury he said, raising his sword. The sword in the air revealed a guy behind Giyuu with a trident about to crash forcefully while the waters raged, and Misaki put his swords in an X, thinking he could block it, but again, like with the dome, it broke, and it seemed like only glass shattered, and he saw the sword cut his neck. She was shocked at how Giyuu had cut her throat. Misaki. Haha, you're a great hunter, you cut me, this will be an experience I won't forget, she said before disappearing. Giyuu, for his part, was very tired, very hurt. Those stances were not entirely perfected since he was killing himself training at night. Giyuu. Hahaha, I'm still weak, I have a long way to go to avenge you, Uncle Satoho, but look at me, I defeated a moon, one step to show that I will become stronger, he said, about to fall unconscious until he heard his crow. Crow. Caw, help has arrived, hold on, they've arrived. Chapter 29. The crow was flying more relieved to the residence where Kenji was, where he was eating with Tsutako, Yuu and Kaijuro, who was feeling better. Although Yuu was closer to Kaijuro, making him nervous with a slight blush, Tsutako felt annoyed. She didn't feel comfortable with her little sister so close to Kaijuro, but she didn't understand why. It should be fine if her little sister was with someone she loved, but why did it bother her? But just then a crow arrived. Crow. Caw, Giyuu Tomioka is hurt, he fought against the 6th lower moon, caw, he said as he perched on the window, seeing everyone surprised and worried about what might happen to him. Yuu. Nai-san, are you alright? She asked, worried about what might have happened to Giyuu. Crow. Caw, he won and is in a house of Wisticles, Kakushins are taking care of him, caw, said the crow to calm down. Kenji. Wait, he defeated a lower moon. He said in surprise, he never thought Giyuu would ever defeat a moon. Kaijuro. Lower moon. He said, confused. Kenji. The moons are the strongest demons under Muzan Kibutsuji's command. There are 12 in total, divided into 2 groups. Upper and lower. The lower ones have a kanji indicating their rank in one eye, while the upper ones have it in both eyes. As far as I know, it takes 2 pillars to defeat an upper moon, he said seriously, and everyone was surprised. Crow. Caw was lucky, he invented 2 new positions for his breathing that wiped out the moon, caw, he said, and it was already a big surprise. Kenji. What? It's not possible that he created 2 new stances so quickly, he said in surprise, it took him too long to create the stances for his repair. Tsutako. Incredible, she said, surprised that her little brother had won. Meanwhile, in the wisteria house, Giyuu was waking up. His gaze was empty at that moment, which changed to one of confusion, not seeing anyone or that he was outside on the battlefield he had created against the lower moon 6. He was going to get up, but the pain remained in his body, along with a weight on both sides of him. He didn't understand what was happening, but when he looked down and saw both Kocho sleeping on top of him, he was puzzled. Why were they like that? Maybe they had healed him with some Kakushins, but why were they sleeping with him? Giyuu? What are they doing here and why does it feel so warm? He thought, somewhat confused, with a slight pinkish tint on his cheeks. The sensation was so warm that he didn't want to get up, but he had to because embarrassment was winning. Using his hands to move them slightly so they wouldn't wake up, he gently moved both of them and was about to get up, but they hugged him tightly, as if they had lost their teddy bear. Giyuu. Demons have a lot of strength, he thought in surprise, he had a slight pain from the strength. Giyuu. What do I do, what do I do? He thought, somewhat agitated. Finally, the sisters got up and saw how they were, jumping to their feet, and Giyuu spoke. Giyuu. Finally, they're awake, he groaned in pain because his limbs were injured. Hanny. To Tomioka-san, sorry about that, but it's not good for him to move, he's hurt, she said, worried about Giyuu, who smiled falsely. Giyuu. I'll be fine, Kocho-san, so don't worry, he said, smiling falsely, since he thought they shouldn't waste time with him. Shinobu. Don't be an idiot, we were informed that you fought with a moon, it's not good to go around so lightly with those injuries, she said, worried about Giyuu, causing Kanai to become jealous, who was still wondering why she was bothered by it. Giyuu. Don't worry, Kocho-san, I'll be fine. Besides, my family must be worried. I have to go and let them know I'm okay, he said, still smiling falsely because he wanted to leave. He didn't want to feel weak, even though he kept telling himself he was weak in his mind. Shinobu Kanai. You're not going to get up, they said with a terrifying aura that made Giyuu shudder, trembling. Giyuu. They're scarier than Yuu when she's angry, he thought, frightened, nodding his head to make the aura of both sisters disappear. Giyuu. I expected something like this from younger Kocho, but not from older Kocho, she's practically terrifying, he thought, frightened. Then both sisters left the room, and Giyuu didn't know what to do anymore. Normally he would train to improve, but he had to say that the last 2 stances he created for his fighting style left him almost breathless. He knew the consequences of using them without perfecting them, so he was sure that this time he would rest. All the sisters were outside the room thinking about the emotions they were feeling for Giyuu. They had never felt anything like this, other than their family's love for them, but with Giyuu the emotion was very strong. They felt nervous around him, warm and safe and very worried when they saw him hurt. They didn't understand it. Annie. Why do I feel this way about him? Why do I get angry when Shinobu is near him? Kannie thought, very confused. Shinu had the same thoughts about why that was happening. They decided not to give it any more importance and decided to go see or rather listen if Giyuu was doing anything, and they saw him through a small hole that was in the wall. They saw him and were surprised by what he said. Giyuu? Oh god, how am I supposed to avenge Uncle Satoho if I can't even easily defeat a lower moon? Should I just let myself die and leave the job to Kaijiro and you? If I do that in a battle against a demon who killed him, I'd be their shield and they could kill him, that would be best. They don't need dead weight like me, he said with a broken voice and lifeless eyes. Chapter 31. Giyuu was looking at the wall, but we will not focus on him, but on a distant part where there is a man. He is sitting on his futon with a woman by his side. The man had somewhat long black hair, a yukata for sleeping, and something strange was on his face. A huge purple stain covered her face, stretching from her forehead to a part near her mouth and nose. Her eyes were completely white. This person could not see anything and seemed to be frightened. The woman next to him had white hair, pale skin, and purple eyes that helped the man. Just then a crow appears with news for that man. Crow. Caw, the lower moon 6 has just been defeated by the low-rank hunter Giyuu. Tomioka, caw, said the crow, surprising the man. And tell me, what is the hunter like? What kind of breathing does he use? He said, intrigued, looking at the crow. Raven. Caw, ocean breath, apprentice of the ocean pillar Kenji. Caw, said the raven, startling the man. It seems there will be a new pillar Amain. It seems we will be close to finishing off the demons, the man said to the aforementioned Amain. Amain. That seems to be the case, Kagaya, but he's still a low-ranking hunter. How did he manage to defeat a moon? He was recently in the final selection, she said, surprised. Kagaya. Yes, but it's promising. I think it would be best to have a meeting with Kenji to see if he agrees to make that hunter a pillar, he said calmly, looking at the crow. Humming back. We see Giyuu who couldn't sleep. It was simply difficult for him, so much negative energy, so many bad thoughts and so much self-loathing caused him great pain. Giyuu. Because I'm not useful, because I'm weak, because I can never help people properly, if I can't even help my little sister, he thought, having his fake smile on his face. He couldn't sleep, he wasn't going to cry, he wasn't going to shed tears. The first thing for him was the well-being of others. He didn't care about his mental or physical state, it was one specific thing for him. Giyuu. I am a tool, I will be their shield, their weapon that they will use to win. I don't deserve to live if I can't do anything right, he thought with an empty gaze, erasing the fake smile he had on his face. He got up to leave the room, noticing that there were futons, more specifically 2 girls who were the Kocho sisters and who appeared to be asleep. He didn't take it seriously and continued on to the patio of the wisteria house. He saw a lake there and simply sat down on his knees, looking at his reflection in the lake. He saw his own true empty gaze. Giyuu. Tool, he said, looking at his reflection in the water. Pathetic, said a voice that did not surprise Giyuu because this voice already tormented him every night when he saw his reflection or slept. Giyuu. Shut up, he said, seeing that a shadow above his head, his reflection in the water, had red eyes and his same appearance. Oh, but what's wrong? Did I hurt you? Oh, but you're already hurt. What a shame for Satoho, he was too weak to be a pillar, he said in Giyuu's ear, who shuddered at that while sweating, still looking at his reflection. Giyuu. Shut up, he said without moving and with a broken voice that was barely audible. It's good to want to avenge someone as weak as him, he said, then instead of taking Giyuu's form, he took Satoho's form. You're weak, you'll never be useful, you'll always be below everyone, you're not even capable of killing a lower moon, and the worst of all, the weakest one without getting hurt, ha, laughing maniacally. Giyuu couldn't answer anything, he just stared at that thing in his reflection. Behind him there was really nothing, he could only see it in the reflection. Suddenly the shadow was just a dark red-eyed shadow surrounding Giyuu's reflection. What's wrong? Do you want your uncle? Do you want to hug him and talk to him? Oh, but you can't, ha, he's dead, he's dead. Your uncle died because of your Vulpa, because he was a hunter and was determined to protect you from demons. It's your fault, said the image of Satoho. Satoho. Because of you, you piece of shit, I died. I should have let things happen. Kenji should have taken in you and Kaijiro and let you die, he said, and Giyuu had his hands clutching his head. Suddenly the dark thing transformed into Giyuu. Giyuu. You're weak, just a useless tool. Do something useful and die protecting at least those who deserve to live, he said while the voice kept laughing. Giyuu. Shut up, he said as shadows appeared. This one wasn't going to last long but… Annie. Tomioka, what are you doing outside? Kanae shouted worriedly, looking at Giyuu, who saw the shadows disappear from his reflection and return to normal. Giyuu first smiled in a forced way. Giyuu. I'm sorry Kocho-san, I couldn't sleep and I was looking at the fish in the water, he said calmly, smiling falsely at Kaie, who looked worried. She simply took him and carried him to his room so he could rest peacefully, and Shinobu was also looking after him in case he was alright. Shinobu. Try to take better care of yourself from time to time, she said, worried about Giyuu, causing Kanae to get angry. Giyuu. I understand, Kocho-san, he said calmly, looking at both sisters. The first time he saw them, he thought it was strange. He didn't pay much attention to them, but when those shadows tormented him just by their presence they would disappear. He didn't understand. Perhaps it was because they wanted to torture him worse when he was alone or something else. Kanae. By the way, stop forcing a smile, she said, surprising Giyuu. Giyuu. What are you talking about, Kocho? I'm smiling because I'm happy. I never smiled in a fake way, he said as best he could. Shinobu. Stop smiling like that, she said, hugging him and surprising Giyuu. Chapter 33. Giyuu, along with Kanae and Shinobu, were walking to Giyuu's house. Although they had helped Giyuu, they didn't know what to do or feel after that. Kanae was already clear about what she felt but still had doubts. She barely knew him, she didn't really know his tastes or hobbies, and that was causing her conflict. While Shinobu was very hesitant, from the moment she heard about the suffering she felt terrible for insulting him, but when she remembered all the good deeds Giyuu did for them, it made her feel warm, but she didn't know what it was yet. The journey was long and they finally arrived. Giyuu showed a sincere smile upon seeing the house where his father Kenji and his sisters Tsutako and Yu were with his brother Kaijuro. If Giyuu had to say something about them, it would be that they are his emotional pillars. Without them, he would have killed himself, but he was grateful to have them. Giyuu. You can come in, he said to both sisters, smiling warmly and genuinely. Both sisters had a blush on their faces. It was so warm to see Giyuu giving them those smiles that it made their hearts beat faster than usual. Shinobu. It's fine too, Tomioka-san, she said, blushing, and Kanae just nodded nervously. But the door was opened by Kenji. Kenji. Oh Giyuu, I see you're back, I'm so glad. I heard you defeated a moon, congratulations, he said, hugging Giyuu. Giyuu. Relax, Odo-san, he said, smiling. Kenji. Oh, I see you've brought guests. My apologies for my manners. I'm Kenji, Giyuu's father, he said, smiling at her. Kanae. And nice to meet you, I'm Kanae Kocho, she said, bowing to Kenji. Shinobu. I am Shinobu Kocho, nice to meet you, she said, bowing. Kenji. Oh, so you're the girls Giyuu mentioned who were classmates. Nice to meet you, he said calmly. Kanae. Huh. To Tomioka-san, what did you say about us? She asked curiously. Kenji. Oh well, I'll tell them inside, and you Giyuu, go take a bath, he said calmly, and Giyuu nodded. Everyone entered and those who sat in the room were the sisters Kocho and Kenji while Giyuu left. Kenji. Well, Giyuu mentioned to me that they are very good colleagues to work with, he said, and the sisters nodded. Kenji. I also mentioned something that happened to Kanae with a demon and that he carried her. He said you acted strangely. Tell me, what were you thinking at that moment? He asked calmly. Read Kanae. Well, I read the couples do what Tomioka did when he carried me on his back. I thought it was rushed by couples, but then he mentioned that he did that with his sister Yu, she said, embarrassed by her thoughts. Kenji. Oh, that's right, well Giyuu is innocent, so he has trouble understanding those kinds of things, thinking they're normal, but tell me, by any chance did you see him cry or swear? He asked somewhat seriously. Shinobu. If she forced a smile and cursed, saying that she was weak and worthless, she said worriedly. Kenji. You see, you probably already know that Giyuu lost his uncle. When he found out that his biological parents abandoned him and his sister Yu, he felt very sad, but after Satoho's death, something broke. Can I ask you a favor? He said, looking at both sisters who were somewhat nervous. The two. Why yes, they said nervously. Kenji. In case Giyuu is unwell, please take care of him. I noticed that besides his brothers and those he loves, he smiles sincerely. I see that they are special to him, he said calmly, and the sisters blushed. It was practically an indirect way of giving them permission to be with Giyuu, and they ran off. But they didn't notice that they entered the bathroom, which was more like a hot spring that Kenji's house had, and what they saw was the cause of an enormous blush, to the point that a tomato would be jealous. It was Giyuu without any clothes on. They saw his formed body, his loose hair, and everything about him. Shinobu. He's well trained. I want to touch him. What are you thinking? Shinobu, calm down, thought Red. Kanae. If everything is like this, how will his damn it stop thinking about this, she thought, very red, and with Shinobu she left carefully so that Giyuu wouldn't notice. Now they didn't know what to do anymore. First, they felt an attraction to Giyuu and saw him. Kanae was very thoughtful. Kanae. Falling in love with him wouldn't be bad, he's very good, gentle, kind, handsome, innocent, and never intended to do anything else with me, but I barely know anything about him, thought Red. You? Excuse me, but who are you and why are you blushing and coming out of the bathroom where she didn't finish because she connected the dots. You saw Nai-san naked, didn't you? She said calmly. Shinobu. And no, it's just that she became so nervous that she couldn't even articulate a word properly. You. Relax, they probably didn't even know I was there, so just calm down, she said calmly. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown in left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.